evening, everyone. We are here for the March office hours with Mr. Terence Tan. And the first thing we'd like him to do is tell us a little bit about himself, your career, former career, and current career.
Hi, Cece, and hi, Peter, and hi to all your anyone who might be listening in. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Terence. I'm the co-founder of Edm8ker. And we are a maker-centric education consultancy that does content and curriculum development, focusing on helping schools and helping teachers bring in a more kind of maker-centric element into the classroom. So this can be in terms of physical making, which is what people often think of when you think about maker education, things like 3D printers, laser cutting and all that, all the way to online making, which is about helping students create artifacts, create meaningful learning experiences with technology, in a way that I think we don't often always see. A lot of technology out there is meant to be consumed by students rather than
Mhm.
created by students. So that's what gets us really excited about helping students use technology in a more creative fashion. In a former life, I was teaching. So I started off as a teacher in Singapore. I was teaching high school history and English for a couple of years. And then I was in the Ministry of Education back in Singapore, where I was looking at how to support students in our community colleges and how to help them get really good employment outcomes once they come out. And one thing that struck me was that a lot of what employers wanted to see, um, things like creativity, a lot of soft skills, these are things that we don't teach our students, and which our education system, and some might say the US education system, doesn't really focus a lot on. And that got me kind of interested in seeing how we can do that more intentionally at a K-12 level. And so yeah, so I joined a great team that was working on maker-centric education and doing great stuff in schools. And yeah, it's been a great journey from there, and it's been an honor to work with the Hyperscore team.
I love that you said maker-centric education. Isn't that a cool thought, Peter, um,
Definitely.
that the focus on making is a hands-on experience for students, and it's wonderful that your company is doing that. Peter, did you have any questions about
Oh, I
Terrence's use of technology?
I just wanted to hear more about what your approach is or how you feel that making influences creativity. I mean, certainly it's a great way, doing something yourself is a great way to learn any type of knowledge, but I'm specifically interested. You said that companies have been looking for students coming out of school with
Yeah,
creative
yeah.
skills or new ideas and just hearing a bit more about how a maker-centric education contributes to that.
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. I think the more I talk to employers when I was working at the ministry, you realize that it's not just the uh, what we think of the tech sector that prizes these like soft skills or creative and all that. Employers from every sector recognize that the future of work is going to be a bit more unpredictable. And so they need students who are resilient, who are flexible, who are not afraid of kind of failing. This idea of failing forward, learning
Mhm.
from your mistakes and being resilient to kind of persist is something that employers are kind of valuing a lot. So maybe to just to give an example, I was talking to a manufacturing CEO, and this was a few years ago, right before the pandemic, actually. And what he was saying is that, with 3D printing being what it is, um, they're able to iterate and test out new versions of what they're doing. So they were manufacturing like pipes. It might seem very pedestrian, like they were manufacturing pipes, but the 3D technology that they had acquired along with the 3D printers that they had in their lab, allowed them to test different versions of potential manufacturing items instead of what they had to do previously, which was to configure a machine, an actual machine in order to produce those items. So bottom line is you cut costs by rapidly iterating, and they need students to be able to have that mentality. And a lot of students are stuck in a mentality of, I don't want to try out something new because if it fails, it's
Mhm.
going to cost the company a lot of money and it's going to hurt my chances at, doing well in a company. But the boss was saying, no, that's not what we want. The cost of iteration has gone down, and so we need students' mentalities to change as well. So I think that's something that actually maker education and maker-centric learning in general can help students and can help their employment prospects in the future. Being able to do something as simple as creating a Scribblebot, which is this, it's a very simple maker-based activity where students are connecting mottos to a little robot made of recyclable materials, allows them to quickly iterate, quickly improve on their designs in a way that's low stakes, and that sets them up for success when they enter the workforce in a way that I don't think a lot of people are seeing right now. Yeah.
I love that you use the words resilience and persistence because I have been working with students in the classroom with the wonderful program that Peter and the people before him had created called Hyperscore. I have a club that has met all school year, and they are so resilient and persistent because they love what Peter's done. Where did you find out about Hyperscore, and what was your first thought about it, and how did you get interested in doing anything with Hyperscore?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always on the lookout with my team for technologies that lend themselves well to our ethos of maker-centric learning. Not a lot of technologies do that. And whenever I bump into one of those technologies, it's normally like it's a aha moment for me when I'm thinking of all the possible things you could do in a classroom in different subjects. So I had the good fortune to meet June. I believe last October, we met at the Connected Learning Summit, where we were both presenting on our respective tools. So Edm8ker has just launched a platform called Eddy. You can see it on my background. So what we do is we take really cool high potential emerging tech software that has great potential for students to use to create stuff in the classroom, and we design lesson packages around it that let teachers know how they can use it to encourage making in the classroom, how they can use it to encourage online making. And when I saw Hyperscore, I was like, aha, this is a great kind of candidate for that, because when it comes to putting students at the center of learning, putting students in the center of being able to be in control of different decisions they're making, that checks the box. Quick iterations, the idea that if I'm making a mistake, I can go back and redo, that also checks the box. So basically, when I was evaluating Hyperscore against all the different criteria I have for a maker-centric software or maker-centric tool, it pretty much satisfied all the conditions. And so I reached out to June. I was like, you guys have something really cool. Let's see what we can do together, and let's see how many teachers we can get excited about this.
Would you be able to share with us the beats and brushes lesson that you came up with?
Oh, it's just right here. Look at that. Okay, wait.
Okay, here's beats and brushes. So tell us a little about the lesson you've designed.
Yeah, so it's first things first, it's not just me, it's an entire team behind me who is working on this. I can't take credit. One of our very talented curriculum developers, Nitesh, was I gave him a design brief. So it normally starts like I give my developers a design brief. I'm like, this is a cool software. I want you guys to take a look at it, play around with it, brainstorm a little about all the different possibilities, and see what you guys can come up with. Right? I have an idea, but I don't want to share with them just yet. I want to hear from them as well. So there were a few options, right? We had an option related to creating soundtrack for movie clips, which eventually became Beats and Brushes. We also had the one related to math, right? And eventually we opted with Beats and Brushes. It was a little bit simpler to develop as a first lesson package. And yeah, I mean, the whole idea behind Beats and Brushes is, I guess in a way, teachers often don't get the chance to get students to see music as a complement to other forms of media. And I think as a former English language teacher, we often talk about this term called multimodalities. It's such a academic term, but essentially it's the idea that more and more students are going to be exposed to media that isn't just presented in one modality. So instead of previously, I mean, 50, 60 years ago, when I'm talking about media, it might be just reading a book, right? But increasingly, you're seeing media being presented in audiovisual formats, video, and increasingly in extended reality, right? It becomes a bit more immersive. And this idea of how do you make sense, or how do you help students to create or make artifacts in an increasingly multimodal world was something that we were quite interested in. And so in Beats and Brushes, what the students are essentially doing is they're creating a soundtrack to accompany a video clip, right? And this video clip is essentially from a bunch of different, could be from different movies. We have we have a video clip from action movie, like I think we have a clip from anime. We also have a clip from a sad movie and a clip from a happy movie, and the students have to essentially use Hyperscore to compose a soundtrack. So on Eddy, which is free to access, free to sign up, you can we have SSO sign up, so you can easily sign up if you have a Google or Facebook account. We have a lesson package which shows you a few things. Right up front, we have the lesson overview. So in the opening activity, the learners are going to watch a video with funny music, even though it's supposed to be for. So we have a clip, a movie clip, and a short, 10-second clip that's supposed to be from a horror movie, but the background basically, I think it has a Ghostbusters theme. So it's kind of like what's the word? Mm, discombobulating, right? You're seeing something that's scary, but actually there's a really funny and hilarious sound clip behind it. And the teacher is supposed to facilitate that discussion over why it might not be scary, right? And that segues into a good discussion about how the soundtrack of a movie affects our emotional or affective response to it. And then in the main activity, the learners are going to use Hyperscore to create original music for a silent video and then use that to present to their peers or their teacher to showcase their understanding of the connection between music and visuals. Another really cool thing we have in this lesson is the whole slides. So we have all the slides prepared and uploaded. You can download the slides, you can use them in your classroom, you can edit it, you can remix it, do whatever you want to it. So that's what we got. Yeah.
I can tell you when I'm talking to teachers today that the opportunity to have something that's already made is huge because they have so many things to choose from. And I know as a teacher myself, when I first saw Hyperscore, I was blown away by it. I went to a workshop and I saw what it was capable of doing in my classroom, and I taught it for 15 years. So the fact that you're seeing a way to use that here today is just awesome. The program's been around. How long, Peter, has the program been around?
It's been around since the early 2000s, so 2002 about. Yeah.
Okay, so we're seeing not only that you're able to incorporate the program, but then to make lessons with that. That's really very exciting for us. Do you see yourself continuing to do anything? If we form a partnership, do you consider yourself somebody who's going to continue to make lessons?
Yeah, I think one big piece is the possible extensions that we can do in different subjects. We try to make all of the lessons that we have on Eddy aligned to standards, because as a teacher, even if I want to introduce emerging technology and a really cool piece of software to my students, I have to do so within the context of a lesson. So moving forward, I think working together, I want to focus a bit more on how different subjects can be integrated. I'm sorry, how Hyperscore can be integrated in different subjects. For example, I can think of a super powerful way to use what we've done with Beats and Brushes to extend it into the narrative writing space, where students are creating soundtracks that accompany not a video clip, but essentially a piece of narrative writing that they've done. And that would easily hit ELA writing standards, I feel. So, I mean, this is where the fun bit comes in, because it's really about how creative you can get with the tech that's at your hands. And I think that's what gets a lot of my team members really excited about playing with new tools, playing with new tech, And yeah, I think Hyperscore was a great experience for them. We also had a great opportunity introducing Hyperscore in one of our pilot sites, but I don't know if you have should I talk about that now? Should I talk? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited to share about this because I mean, our lesson packages are just, they're just online. Um, but there needs to be another step of translation, which is it actually being used in a classroom setting. And so we have piloted, we're piloting Eddie in a couple of sites, one here in Somerville, right in our backyard, as well as another school in Miami. And when the teachers in an after school program in Somerville actually used beats and brushes within their class, the students were like, wow, what is this, right? You could see it was the first time they actually thought of music composition as something that was easily accessible. And they had a lot of fun looking at the different video clips and kind of pulling together um trying to build up a soundtrack for them and trying to create a soundtrack that makes sense, right? I think initially, obviously, they're gonna face there's a learning curve, so they're trying to figure out how to drop the teardrops and how to do the harmony line and all that. But increasingly, I think the idea is with the teacher as facilitator, they were able to improve on their constructions and improve in their compositions, and really eventually come up to something that they were happy with.
That's
One of
great.
our, I'm sorry, go ahead, Peter.
I was just gonna say, as I'm thinking about it now, I think it's a really nice introduction into music composition. You're saying, it's something that we think about too, is that composition is not something that's taught until you're, studying music in college or an advanced level. But playing music is something that's very considered very accessible. But and part of that may be like, there's all the theory, the notation, all of these things that we perceive as barriers to creation. But there's also just like, what does it mean to compose? Yet soundtracks are a great way into that because it's something that every child, almost of every age, is familiar with. Every program that they've watched is accompanied by music. They have developed that kind of intuition about what works and what doesn't. And I like that you're experimenting with that in this too, of like, does this music fit this subject matter? But I think it makes the task accessible, not just the tool. Thinking about, oh, okay, I've got this. What is it? What could I make that sounds like it without having to think? We talk about facing the blank page. Like, oh, compose a symphony. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, now you know Hyperscore. Go compose a symphony. Like that's still like too big of a hurdle. So I think it's a great way of scoping the task.
Well, I saw it also as as an analogy to a lot of the work we do in hands-on making. Even though this is in an online space, like sometimes even if students don't have background on, well, like one of our favorite activities is squishy circuits. Essentially, you're using Play-Doh to create a circuit. And the students actually don't need circuitry knowledge in order to make it work. Of course, if they do, then it might be a bit easier for them. But even if they don't, students with the right facilitation eventually get that, if I put the LED light with the longer, like there's a positive and a negative side, but by trial and error, they kind of figure out which side goes where. And if they make a mistake, they don't necessarily need domain specific knowledge in order to change what they're doing to test it out. Right. So I think it's an interesting tension between if you have domain specific knowledge, how does that help or hinder your making? That's something a little, I guess some people will say a bit more academic, but it's something that we've been very interested in, right? Because we have all these activities that we want students to get, but sometimes teachers like, well, I don't know if my kids have the domain knowledge, right? So then we have to have a conversation around that.
I really love that you talked about the teacher as a facilitator. And that really fits in with the mission that we really embraced the last few years called inverted pedagogy. And it's where the teacher is the guide on the side, not the sage on the stage. I believe it's Alice Nelson that said that. But the idea is that we are there to support what they are trying to do with the tool that we present to them. And I can say without a doubt that the long-term subbing positions I've had where I've taught the students Hyperscore through an activity, and then I let them go out on their own. They didn't need any help from me. I'm basically going around checking in with them, asking them what they're doing, what are their ideas. And so you've struck something really wonderful if you're seeing the teacher as the facilitator and the students as the experimenters with this tool.
Yeah, one thing that and wearing my teacher hat, like I was thinking back to, when I was a teacher, a lot of this constructivist oriented, you talk about inverted pedagogy, it's really within the constructivist kind of a wheelhouse. A lot of that is great, but as a teacher, I think the tension is often like, okay, as I'm a facilitator, how do I introduce domain specific knowledge through explicit teaching in a way that doesn't necessarily pull away from students being able to learn through making? And so I think that's a tension teachers are going to be grappling with um, regardless of what subject they teach. Yeah.
We have been experimenting in our second Saturday composition workshops. Peter does a great job of introducing how to use the tools. And we meet on the second Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Central Time, 10:30 Eastern Time. We just basically write music together. Sometimes we have a focus and sometimes we don't, but we are ending up doing some STEAM work. So how do you write music that's around science? How do you write music that's around technology, engineering? Of course, the arts, that's going to be a little easier, and we did do a composition based on math, which you had mentioned earlier. But one of the most exciting things we've done is narrative writing. And that's where there's a story that's created first, and then Peter works hard to make a motif for the characters, and then create a storyline through either melodies or percussion, and then put that all together. Do you want to talk about that for a minute, Peter, what we're doing with the narrative writing?
Yeah, I think it's like there are a couple of approaches, like the idea of leitmotif, where you could associate a musical idea with a character or an event. And we've done like our quintessential example of that is Cappy's Day, which is about a capybara having adventures, and we have different motifs that connect those, and then you can assemble those into a story. When you place things in a certain order, it becomes a story. But then there's also kind of the emotive part of that. How do you create the feeling, the mood? How does each motif reflect the feeling that we associate with this character or this element? But overall, what is the shape of it? And just thinking about things at that level is very fun and very easy to do in something like Hyperscore. But that's, I think, goes along with what Terence is saying about how do you apply this to the language arts, and I can imagine many different ways where you write something and you accompany it with music, or have like this music counterpart to it, but also performing it in some way with a musical accompaniment. Interesting.
One of the activities that we get students to do sometimes for STEM is to construct their own pan flute. So a pan flute is essentially a flute with like straws of different lengths, and in doing so, they learn about musical notation. Well, not musical notation, but different pitches and how the length of it relate to the different pitches. So I think there might be some space to work there around that hands-on making piece and then what they can do in Hyperscore. I don't know. I feel like for STEM, there's a lot of possibilities. You just have to get the right people in the room and do a bit of that brainstorming. Like subject alignment for emerging tech software, like what you guys have with Hyperscore, is something that's been on our mind for a long time. We use Google's teachable machine to integrate into science lessons by getting students to use machine learning to differentiate between plants that are like diseased and not diseased. So there's a lot of these fun integrations that you can do once you kind of have a good team behind it.
I know that something that's been very motivating for my students, if I share screen here for just a second, is that Peter's worked very hard to do update the screen, the look of the screen, but also to do something artistic, as that's his real life career. And that is something that I find that if I give my students the opportunity to have a day or two in class to do things, and then I share with them the big kabam. I don't know, Terrence, I'm sure we've talked to you about this, or even Peter might have shown you, but to just bring up Peter's different
Ooh.
spaces, like for example, blacklight. I can tell you that my students, I always say, Peter did this, Peter did that. And I will show this and they'll go, tell Peter we love this. So I'm sure you can see in your lessons that if you were to introduce the idea of even picking the type of screen that they're working with, that their music is not only oral, but it's visual as well, that they can get an opportunity to pick how their screen is going to look when they're working. These are just a few of the really popular ones that our students are working with, and they can manipulate. Hyperscore was originally designed, the teardrop shape is supposed to show the attack and decay of the note as instrument sound drops away. But a lot of students like this visual of the block note that Peter created that lets them see length of time. And so the students are able to choose between those, and they're all also able to, I work with some kids with special needs. And so having the ability to have a window with just the diatonic notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, treble clef and bass clef, and then they're able to drop notes on just those 8 notes. It makes it a little easier for them to be able to create something, and then even potentially play it on boom whackers or something that's rainbow colored. So wanted to see for a second what you thought of that idea, and does that make your mind
Well, I mean, more student choice is always, I mean, I am firmly on the line of more student choice, even though as a product guy, like as someone who's designing product, you might look at your users and be like, oh, actually, that's not a functional improvement, that's an aesthetic improvement. But what I would say is that as students, knowing that students are your end users, aesthetics matter. Something that seems purely functional to the adult in the room might not seem a way for students. So I think it just shows that you guys are paying attention to who your end users are and being really aware of, what they prioritize, what they need. And you can only achieve that if you talk to your end users, right? Which is so great that you have UCC, being in the classroom, being able to talk to your end users. That's super important. Like for our product, that's what we do. I talk to teachers all the time. I try to get them to take a look at our lesson packages. What would you change? I mean, it's pretty much similar, right? And I think giving students more choice, not just in terms of function, but also the aesthetics of it, is just something that is often overlooked. Yeah. When was it introduced? I must have missed it out. Super cool, but must have missed it out.
The themes.
Yeah, the themes.
The themes were introduced when we moved to the web-based version.
Oh, okay,
So
okay. I gotta
it's
check
been
it out.
there hidden, but yeah.
Hidden. Another thing that was pretty cool that I found super useful when the teachers are carrying it out is that you have multiple student accounts within the same, like having a teacher account and a student account. Like that was useful for the teachers to be able to set up in advance, and for the teacher to actually hold on to students' compositions after they have left the classroom, so that they can show it to parents, they can forward it to parents who are wondering what their kid is doing after school. So that was another aspect that I thought was quite intentional and thoughtful.
Yeah, we always wanted the compositions that you create to be kind of a portfolio that could travel with you, or something that you hold on to. So even if you're creating it as part of a class or even a group project, that there were still ways to share it with your friends, with your parents, to hold on to it even after that class is over, so that it belongs to you, that you feel a sense of ownership over what you've created.
I think Peter did a wonderful job of working with the team that designed what we're calling the Hyperscore classroom. And I know I had experienced using free software, but there was no way for me to track what the students are doing, or group them together, or understand, when they're done, or if they want to share it with someone. And the design of the Hyperscore classroom now is that you can group your students. So when I do a long-term subbing, I can do each grade level, and that helps a lot in being able to use the software. So that might be an advantage to you when you're sharing your lessons, is that we do have the classroom available for the teachers to group their students doing the lessons.
For sure, for sure. That's a big plus in the practicality. Yeah, on the practicality side. As teachers, um, I mean, Google Classroom is the not gold standard, but it's what we often refer to. So most student-facing kind of software will have some form of grouping or portfolio assessment or some way to kind of harvest and cluster your students meaningfully so that what they're creating in the session isn't just lost after that. Yeah.
Is there anything, Terence, that you're thinking you can see us doing together as we move forward? Is there any ideas popping through your head as we speak this evening?
Yeah, so I think I want as we kind of move forward, I think I want to look at how we can build lesson packages that are aligned to other subject areas besides music. So this one is essentially designed as a music lesson, right? But I think we want to get a bit deeper into how we can look at STEM, how we can look at English, how we look at math. Like to me, that subject alignment is what's particularly exciting. Also kind of, oh yeah, we are building a generative AI product that is essentially going to help teachers build lesson packages from a certain number of. So I can share it briefly, but I can imagine Hyperscore being added to as one of the software that teachers can actually develop lessons for. So let's say I want to do like narrative writing, right? And I have fourth grade kind of, this isn't released yet, by the way. So if you guys out there are looking at it, you're early buds. So I can imagine how, I don't think Hyperscore is in there right now because Hyperscore, we only started working on Hyperscore like a month ago, and this has been a couple of months in development. But I can imagine Hyperscore being here and teachers like generating lesson packages similar to what we have with as the one you saw, the Beats and Brushes lesson package, being able to generate similar lesson packages at scale for any subject. So I think in the future that will help teachers a lot, obviously, because for a lot of cool software, really innovative software like what Hyperscore is doing, there's still a heavy lift that the teachers need to do in order to connect it to subject specifications and standards, and that's necessary because that's part of a teacher's job. But I guess the question is, how do you make it easier? And I think a tool like this will kind of help teachers. So that's next on the horizon, how to get Hyperscore on the list of all this software.
That's absolutely wonderful. It'll be really exciting to see what you do with everything. And one of the things I really like about working for this company is Peter is a very creative technologist, and he comes up with things, or somebody asks, is it possible for the software to do this? That's the rainbow colors in the window were something I just mentioned to Peter, and the next time I saw him, he had rainbow stripes across the window. And so it's possible that something that you come up with is something that we can work symbiotically with as we're moving forward in the future. That's
For sure, yeah.
very exciting. Peter, did you have any last comments for Terence?
I was thinking about where we started, and you were talking, Terence, about the physical aspect of making that we commonly associate that with. And I don't know if you probably aren't aware, most people aren't, but Hyperscore actually got its beginning in a physical form, where the idea was to create an object that you could compose with. It was called the Big Thing. And when that became unwieldy and unpractical at the time, that's when it moved into the software domain. So I think
How big was it?
It was there's a great photo. It was created by Maggie Orth and others, and there's a photo, and I have not been able to find it, of Maggie Orth standing next to it, so you could get a sense of the scale. It was probably about 4.5 feet tall, and human size object. So first I'll just show this sketch of
Oh
the big
man.
thing. So this was kind of the concept for it. And then unfortunately I don't have the photo of her standing next to it, but it's for scale, but here was the physical built prototype. It's kind of straight out of Dr. Seuss or something, but
Yeah, I was gonna
um,
say it's like cat in the hat stuff.
yeah, yeah. And then like, you can kind of get a sense of scale of the different objects here because there's a CRT in the back of this.
Mm.
But so
I mean,
that's
I think there is quite a lot to be said about the hands-on element of
Mhm.
like physical play, especially for younger kids. I don't think digital is gonna replace that anytime soon, which is
No,
why,
no.
yeah. So I think there's a good like it's not either or, it's gonna be and.
Well, right, and I think that that's another area for subject alignment with Hyperscore is how do you connect it with a physical experience or a physical controller, or is it, the most obvious case that we do a lot is that, okay, you compose something and then you play it on an instrument. But I
Mm.
think there's other
Have you
opportunities
guys
in the
have you
STEM
guys heard of
related.
the Makey Makey?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
I can see
Yeah,
I mean, gotta dive deep into it, but I can see a crazy way where students are using the Makey Makey
yeah,
in super innovative, crazy, ridiculous ways and connected to Hyperscore. I don't know.
yeah,
Those are just shower
definitely.
thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, we
Yeah,
should try that.
yeah.
I especially love the idea that we work with anyone of any age or ability. And so if we have someone who has a physical disability, they can still participate in music making if we end up making it something that they can manipulate. But even having a choice of what you put on a screen allows you to be a participant in the music making. So the possibilities are really very endless for all ability levels to be able to participate in hyperscore music making.
For sure. Mhm.
Well, I don't know about Peter, but I don't think this is the last time we're going to talk to Terrence. I think I think Terrence, you and June finding each other at the Connected Learning Summit is going to be something wonderful for both of our companies. And the fact that we're working to help teachers make life easier for teachers and make learning more exciting for students is something we will continue to build on in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we love working with companies with really innovative stuff and which are also small enough to kind of, move things along faster. So yeah, I mean, I had a great time working with Hyperscore to build up that one lesson, and I'm kind of looking forward to see what else we can come up with.
We
That's
are too.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time with us this evening, and we will look forward to having others. We'll share this on social media, and we'll let you know what people say, and then hopefully you can share our content as well. But thank you so much for looking at what we had to offer and making that innovative throughout your program.
Yeah, you're welcome. The pleasure was mine.
Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon, Terrence.
Thanks so much, CC and Peter. Yep,
Yeah.
see you guys
See
soon.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.